Merryfield's Gardening Advisor, brought to you by the experts at Merryfield Garden Center. Join us as we discover beautiful plants, new trends, and exciting ideas for your landscape. So let's get growing together. Merryfield's Gardening Advisor, bringing out the best in your garden.
Good morning, everybody. Peggy and I are so glad you could join us here today on Merryfield's Gardening Advisor. You know, we were talking bulbs last week, and it's such a big topic and a fun topic and timely topic because it is time to plant and it is time to plant bulbs. So we kind of focused on specialty bulbs last week, but kind of the classics this week.
Well, some of the larger groupings anyway. And what we're really going to do today is more a pictorial view through a visual of some of the choices from the tulips and particularly and the narcissus, daffodil families, and to show you how fantastic they are.
That's right. Speaking of showing you, we've got a picture
well,
here.
just one to get you turned on.
Okay. All right. Imagine that next spring.
Right. Right. Well, why do we look forward to the bulbs so much? They're very fresh and refreshing, and we're all ready for some color after the winter.
Right.
And actually, this is my own garden, the garden beside the road, which you all have seen so many times. But it's several years ago, and I really was trialing a lot of these bulbs. They are planted between the perennials that are there. And I really want to emphasize that as we go through the show, because when you plant these bulbs where their foliage can be partially covered by other emerging foliage, you are a lot happier with them, because you must remember that the foliage is what makes next year's bulbs.
Right.
Even with those tulips, and no, some of the tulips are not terribly perennial. They don't go past that first year, but a lot of them do. And we're going to talk about some of that as we go through the day.
It is very tempting to try to snip off that foliage as it's dying, but we can't do that.
It's just not the thing to do. Nope.
Okay, well, before we get started, no phone calls today because we have tons and tons and tons of pictures
Lots
to show
of pictures.
you. Lots of pictures.
Lots
and
of
a video as well.
That's right.
So lots of information today, so no phone calls. A couple quick announcements before we get started. Let you know what's happening at Merryfield Garden Center. Our seminars continue. Today at the Merryfield Community Hall, which is right next door to our Merryfield location, is Pruning Made Easy. Professor Larry Shapiro is going to, actually I think he's going to give you a hands-on so bring your gloves and a pruner in case that happens, because he's going to give you lots of information about pruning and maybe put you to work a little bit out there. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that, but be prepared just in case. 10 a.m. at the Merryfield Community Hall, Merryfield location. At Fair Oaks, Michael Fay is going to be there talking about fall magic with trees and shrubs. That's also at 10 a.m. And he's going to show you a wide variety of gorgeous trees and shrubs with their gorgeous, dazzling leaves and color. And at our Gainesville location today, renovating an overgrown landscape. Now, Renetta Holt, one of our wonderful landscape designers, are going to help you. If your plants are kind of overtaking your landscape, it's time to do something about it. So she's going to give you the tips that you need to determine what should be saved, what should be changed, that type of thing. So take advantage of those. And then next week we will finish up our fall series of seminars with 2 seminars and an event. We will be talking about fall cleanup and gardening in deer country. Those are the seminars that we'll be on. And then at our Fair Oaks location next week, the Old Dominion Chrysanthemum Society will be having their chrysanthemum annual show. So that's going to be great. You see some of those beautiful mums that you don't really think about. So very, very good opportunity to see something new and different. So that's MerryfieldGardenCenter.com has the complete list of seminars. As I said, next week we'll finish up our fall series, but then we'll have a few decorating in the end
Christmas
of November and beginning of December. So a couple more things going on. Tomorrow at our Fair Oaks location, the Arlington Rose Foundation is going to be having a seminar called The Secret is in the Soil. and that's going to be, you're going to learn how to amend and condition your soil for growing roses. And they've got a guest speaker, Dan Schwartz, a soil expert with the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District. So that is going to be very informative tomorrow at our Fair Oaks location, 2 to 4 p.m. And then our next big fun thing is next weekend at our Gainesville location. It's time for this will be our fifth annual Dog Halloween Costume Contest. That is so much fun. I was out there last week emceeing, and last year emceeing, and it was just, these costumes are amazing. So it's Saturday, October 25th at our Gainesville store. Registration starts at noon, contest at 1. There's great prizes. There's a $100 Merrifield gift card as a grand prize, and then there's prizes for funniest, scariest, best kisser, cutest, most unique, and it will be held rain or shine. Let's show you a couple real quick of the costumes from last year. See, I think we have a little fairy ballerina type of thing. And then the next one is, I called it Fiesta. He was so cute. And then, of course, the crab. But these costumes were just amazing, so imaginative. So get your best friend ready and bring them out for the contest next Saturday. Lots and lots of fun.
A lot of personality there.
Lots of personality there.
Yes.
So that's our announcements for the day.
All right. Well, we got a lot going on.
We do. Mm-hmm.
And actually, the first picture that I wish to share with you is from the bulb catalog, because this is one full page of species Greggii kaufmania tulips. They are among the hardiest of tulips and the most likely to come back for several years. Now, they're very different. They're very short, oftentimes, not the long, tall stems of some of the others, but this is a wonderful group of bulbs to really look over. I have one close-up from my own garden because over the years, over 50-plus years of planting and dividing and moving these things around, I do have quite a few examples of things, you know. But this is one from the Kaufmania or Greggii group. They're very, very similar. Lower growing, interesting foliage, oftentimes mottled foliage. And during the day, they open up full blast and they're just strikingly beautiful. So as we progress through this morning's show, I'm going to try to give you an idea of when these things bloom approximately. Because if you're having a wedding event or you're having some event and you want to know, okay, is this going to bloom on this day? I have no idea. All I can do is help guide you.
That's right.
This is early, this is mid, this is late, because the weather controls it, as it does so many things. But as we progress through this, hopefully we can share tidbits of information that will be helpful for you in your planning.
Absolutely. Now, when we come back, you're going to be over in our virtual garden to help demonstrate some of these beautiful bulbs.
We'll see.
We'll take a quick break.
Thank you. Welcome back to Merrifield's Gardening Advisor, and I hope that you enjoy today's show because I love what bulbs can do for us in the garden. And I want to show you some types of bulbs, but I'd like to show you also how I use these bulbs. In this particular area, it's actually in a very wooded section. It gets dappled light throughout the entire day, which means it gets some direct sunlight. And yes, a lot of these bulbs will say plant in full sun. I personally do not have full sun anywhere in my garden, and I have a great deal of luck with a lot of things. So sometimes you just simply have to try things. Okay, here is an early season type of tulip. As I said, the species, the gregis, the kaufmanias, are those that have greater longevity and with an interesting and different kind of Helleborus. And this Helleborus, like all the others, are somewhat promiscuous. They just seed about all over the place, which makes them lovely. It's Helleborus foetidus. It's kind of a green color. And way in the background, your eye is pulled towards a gorgeous shrub that is definitely underused. Kerria, K-E-R-R-I-A, Kerria japonica. The stems are very green in the winter time, and they cascade out. So it's a beautiful shrub, even in the winter time. And then it has this lovely bloom in the spring, which is nice and bright. And you can see there are some miniature daffodils in bloom here. Gonna have to roll through some of these pictures, got a lot of them, okay? Species tulips, Clausiana, couple of different colors. These are very deer resistant, not proof. I never say that, okay? Deer resistant. They do seed themselves about, and I've enjoyed them for years. You can even see that I'll plant tulips, and every now and then I'll get lots of them that do come back. And then you can see some of the small bulbs that we talked about last week that are in bloom here. Some of the grape hyacinths. I think I have another picture of these. You can see that I'm very fond of these, and I plant them in groupings, although they make up their mind when they're seeding to go in other places, which is usually better choices than I would make. I use a lot of Helleborus. They do seed. I move the seedlings around because I have a lot of room. Helleborus are very deer resistant, but look how beautifully they combine. I like the look. And let's progress through these, okay? Here is a blend of things that I tried one year. It's a blend of the mid-season tulips and the mid-season narcissus. This could be a cutting garden. If you had the space and you had an area where you wanted to plant a number of these things so that you could cut them and bring them into the house, this is wonderful. Otherwise, it's just a spectacular show. And in this section, I actually planted annuals over and among afterwards to hide the foliage. Next one. Okay, where else do I use these bulbs? Here I'm representing the narcissus as well as the tulips. This is mid-season. This is how a garden becomes very exciting and very enjoyable and very changeable. In this area, there's a dwarf Pieris japonica. Very green all winter, all year. Lovely new growth that's reddish in the spring. And then these beautiful flowers. And over on this side is a repeat of that. Behind it in the background is a cascading Japanese maple. So what a perfect place to plant bulbs. And so I planted a grouping of the narcissus and a couple of groupings of the mid-season or even late-season tulips. I think these are Darwin. And by the way, they came back into the third year. Next one, please. Here is, we'll go back to that Pieris japonica, not Pieris japonica, sorry, Kerria. This is the shrub Kerria. Look at the color pickup with the later season of the tulips. These are the long-stemmed ones. How beautiful is that? Let's go. Put a few more. We're going to roll through some of these. Parrot tulips. If you choose from the different groupings and the different types, you can have a very long season of bloom. Remember the parrot tulips. They were among the very last to come into bloom. The next one. Think of pairing colors. This is the wonderfully fragrant hyacinths, and you just must have. We're going to have a video of how to plant in containers. This is a good one for containers. Nemesia, an annual, loves cool season. Plant it in the spring when it's available. But look at the color pickup. Next one. Wow. Again, kaufmania, gregi, low growing. Look at this color pickup, because this is early season when the hyacinths do come into bloom. Same color. And we've got this gorgeous gold heart perennial, the bleeding heart. So you've got color pickup in all of those. Mix in a few pansies and you've got a small area that really says a lot to you. Next one. Okay, going to talk about daffodils a lot too, because there are a lot of daffodil, narcissus, jonquil, whatever you want to call them, okay? And this one is one of the earliest. It's the cyclaminius. That means that the petals kind of fall back. And you'll find several different varieties, but look at the color in the cup of that. Next one. And the color in this, look for the bicolors. This one has touches of white at the base of the cup and touches of white at the petal. Beautiful, beautiful daffodil. Next one, please. And to close out this particular segment, I want to show you a great use for a grouping where you've planted at least a dozen of these bulbs to make a real show. Again, from the gregi, the kaufmania, early blooming types with the early large cup daffodils. Just a beautiful welcome to spring. We'll be back with more ideas and more beautiful pictures.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about bulbs today, and I need to mention we have been so lucky to have the last 2 weekends at our stores. Members of the Washington Daffodil Society have been by, being in the bulb section on Saturdays and Sundays and helping us out, and we really appreciate that. Today, I understand there will be somebody at the Gainesville store only.
Well, these are all volunteers.
They're all volunteers, and we
in this society, and it's great that they're
so
sharing.
knowledgeable. Yeah.
Sharing the knowledge and so forth. It's like this show, which is why I so much enjoy doing it. And love all your comments, by the way, when you come into the garden center. Please do say hello. I do enjoy that very much, yes. Lets me know that, hey, it's working.
Works. That's right.
Okay, since this is a visual, it's a pictorial day, let's roll through some of these pictures pretty quickly, because I just want to talk about some of the different beautiful bulbs that are available. And granted, if you've got a really small space, you're going to have to make some choices, okay?
Right.
But there are choices to be made. So let's look at some of those. Among those choices in the daffodil grouping are miniatures. Now, look on your package. It will tell you the approximate bloom time, because there are miniatures that come in early, mid, and late season. These are delightful. They are the ones that can be planted nearer the front of the border, the edge of shrubs, and they're very complementary. Their foliage isn't as big, it isn't as strong, it isn't as hard to hide, and it's glorious. They often reproduce very well too. Here, again, guess what? It's with Helleborus, okay? I am a lover of hosta. I have beautiful hosta. I spray them with Bobex, but I am introducing more and more of the Helleborus because they're magnificent, and so far, the deer are not eating them. Next one, please. Again, here are two different types of bulbs. One is the wonderful snowdrop that is a mid-season bloomer, along with a small cup mid-season daffodil, narcissus. It's narcissus, they are all narcissus, but usually we refer to the large cupped ones as daffodils, which is in the next picture. A wonderful large cup that splays out and is frilly. And no, I'm not naming names because there are some that are so similar. Just go in and pick the ones that look gorgeous to you. And the following picture is one again with a larger cup, but a stronger yellow. So there's slight variations between. And the next one is one that people say, these don't have as great longevity. Maybe not, but in my garden, they've lasted for several years. They're referred to as a split corona, and that's because the cup is in petal-like sections. They're very different. They're very beautiful. And in the next picture, another one that's equally different. Little dainty small cup, pink. Very, very pink. And in the next one, again, I recommend groupings of these. This one reproduces really, really well. I love the groupings. If you possibly can, plant them 3s, 5s, 7s, 9s, whatever you can to make a good show. And in the next one is absolutely one of my favorites, a late blooming one. And there are several little blossoms on each stem. And still the next picture, I will show you how I use a lot of these late blooming ones, the miniatures particularly. This is mixed as a ground cover beneath dogwood, and it is the wonderful woodland phlox. There are 2 woodland phlox that stand out and perform really well for me. Under the oaks, under the dogwood, under the redbud. But this is Phlox stolonifera. Phlox stolonifera. Phlox divaricata is equally good. It's just a little taller. These are joyful. In fact, I was out last weekend lifting sections of this and moving it into other areas so that I had even more of it.
So it transplants very well.
It transplants beautifully, yes. And this is an absolute perfect time to do that. You can move these things around. It's a great time to add perennials. Just wonderful. And in the last picture for this segment is, again, a narcissus that I am particularly fond of. It's late blooming, multi-flowers on the stems, long stems, great for cutting, cheerfulness. It comes in a yellow tone also, and it is very fragrant. And behind that is, again, one variety of the wonderful grape hyacinths. So these are some of the plants that I have in the garden that I enjoy very much and have performed well for me.
You know, it's just amazing how many different varieties there are to choose from.
Absolutely. And if you look at the packages, and as I said, if you see early, mid, and late, you can have these things in bloom for a really long period of time, from in January right through May.
And I agree with you, I love the groupings rather than just a few here or there. When you make a big statement, you know, you see it, I feel you see it better from the road, you know.
Well, this is true. You really do. So groupings do work really well. And I do it with a shovel.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break and come back with more beautiful bulbs. Mums, it is mum time.
Well,
Perfect time
yes.
to plant mums.
Well, it is a good time to plant
Yep.
mums, that's for sure. Pansies particularly because they have greater longevity,
Right.
you know.
Well, and I love to plant pansies in the fall because then they come back in the spring. And to me, even
Well, God
stronger.
willing, if
Exactly,
we don't have a
exactly.
winter like
That's
last
true.
winter.
That's true.
Whoa, Debbie, we got
They're
a lot.
supposed to come back in the spring.
Well, and they usually do.
Yep.
But we had a tough winter
Yes, we
last
did.
year on a lot of things.
Yes, we did.
Okay, but we're not going to do that again.
That's
No,
right.
Not going to do that. Well, we do have a video, a how-to thing in this one. But first, I really want to talk a little bit more about where I plant and enjoy things. Actually, there's a creek that runs through my property. It's a dry stream bed most of the time these days. But across there, I don't do an intense a lot of planting. There are a lot of bulbs there that have accumulated over the years and that I've divided and replanted. And I have to tell you that the children, the grandchildren particularly, absolutely love to go strolling through and picking these bulbs. And so it is a large mixture of different kinds of bulbs and primarily helleborus, but also some shrubs. And it's very enjoyable. In the next picture you can actually see some of the shrubs that are in bloom. I love forsythia. There's some nice forsythias out there now that are not so huge as the old-fashioned ones were. And there's a weeping cherry in bloom. There will be dogwood in bloom. There will be serviceberry or amelanchier in bloom. And so there's going to be a lot going on that I don't have to maintain closely.
That's a
which
good
is
thing.
very important. A close-up of just one of the helleborus, and in the next picture are a grouping of bulbs that cannot be forgotten because when they come into bloom, and that is allium. And the deer don't eat these either so far. This is a large grouping in front of, between peonies. And most enjoyable, this is the purple splendor, which is a smaller of those big ones. In the following picture, it's planted as part of my vegetable and herb garden, again with the peonies and with the foxglove. And you can see I have enough of them there in groupings to be attractive. This one was several years ago. I haven't quite accomplished that since. But I had, for me, the foxglove is primarily biennial, and it's just lovely when it blooms with the allium. And in the next picture is an unusual one. It's called Schuberti, and it's just coming into bloom. It's huge. It can be a foot across. So by all means, invest in some allium.
Exactly. And we have this beautiful video that we'd like to show you because we had the opportunity to do some
We did
filming
this
out there
last
last year,
year.
and it's so much easier out there in the, annual
all
section.
available.
It's all right there. So let's take a look.
It's time to do those fall containers. And while you're thinking about it, think not just fall, but through the winter and into the spring. Here's how I like to do my containers. Choose one that's large enough to hold enough soil to get through the winter. I love clay, and if it's well fired, it usually goes through the winter. Be sure that it has good drainage. Check to be sure there are holes in the containers you're using. I place a piece of landscape fabric over that hole, and then I like to use pea gravel to cover approximately ½ an inch in the bottom of the pot. This really helps to keep the little critters out, and it also keeps the soil in. And if you're gardening on a deck or a patio, you want the soil to stay inside. After you've done that, I like to put a good potting soil up to about 2/3 of the depth of this pot. I like to use our Merrifield potting soil, but ProMix and several others are also good potting soils. And then when I have about 2/3, I add soil moist. This is the same thing really that's in baby diapers. It absorbs the moisture and then releases it. It does not replace watering, but it certainly helps. And then I sort of have my own brew, which is not absolutely necessary, but I like the rock phosphate, and so I add some of that. I like the green sand, and I add, according to the directions, please, a little bit of gypsum, which is calcium, and then I throw in just a little bit of plantain. These are all organics. And since you want this to go through the winter and into spring, organics are a very good way to go. I want to mix that thoroughly because you don't want that soil moist in the top of that soil. And now we're ready to plant. What are your choices? Pansies go through the winter beautifully, but I want something else a little different. I want something that's going to pop next spring. And so I'm going to put my tulips in first. I'm really only going to use 5 or 6 of these because I want them to come up through these pansies. And so I'm going to be sure that they are beneath the root systems. I think I'll put a grouping of 3 on this side and perhaps a grouping of 2 on another area, and then maybe 1 all by itself over here at the edge. Ready for the plants. Love the pansies and the violas. Take them out of their pot. Be sure, this one has 3 plants in it, so I'm going to open it up and place that inside of here. Put another one over in this area. Bounced right into place, didn't it? And then I'm going for the violas. Going to choose that viola, and look, the roots are, you can see they're very obvious. You want to open those roots up. Perhaps remove just a little from the bottom. Don't want to destroy that root ball, just open it up and put that into place. I like to use a little bit of yellow in a lot of the containers, not in all of them perhaps, but it really makes things pop. Now, what are my choices from here? I can add a small chrysanthemum because when it's all finished blooming, I'll take it out, and that will give more space for the pansies and the violas. But what else would be interesting in here? The little Ophiopogon would pick up a color if you used, and I'm going to reach back, this wonderful kale. Kale goes all through the winter and then blooms in the spring and will bloom along with the tulips. And so you could also use that in the container. What else? Wonderful heucheras, the coral bells or the heucherellas. Isn't that lovely? Let's take this out and say that we're using that. Okay, around these pansies and violas, you can also add a carex, a small grass in this area. You've got things that are very obvious and very attractive in the wintertime. You've got the pansies going through, and then come spring, you still have these things. The pansies will have really established themselves, and you'll have the bulbs coming up through the center. And then the only thing that you really need after that are beautiful accessories. Wonderful, wonderful way to enjoy color and interest in all seasons.
Welcome back. We're talking bulbs today, beautiful bulbs, and how to use them, how to choose them, how to pop them in containers, as you just saw in this video, this past segment. And we've got a few more planting tips along the way, but some beautiful ones to show us still.
Right. Actually, I hope that video was instructive to you, because our winter containers are as important as all the others that we have in our garden, and maybe more so, because they really do say hello.
Right.
And I do enjoy putting a few tulips in those containers. Now I'm going to run through a few pictures that over a period of time that I have done in the garden. Again, a lot of this is trialing these things. And a lot of it is to have pictures so that I can share in a teaching aspect. And so I chose different varieties on this particular year. I did an individual container of just violas, individual of just pansies, and then I did containers with just one type of tulip or hyacinth. And in the following picture you can see where, and this was another season, I had some in the ground and some in containers. And the beauty of these containers is that you can move them about. They don't have to be there before. You can wait until they're in their prime and move them into position. And then the next one is a little bit of a close-up of some of the ones that I've done, and I will, before we leave this segment, show you another way to have great success with planting these bulbs in containers. Here I have just the grape hyacinths, just the narcissus. Really wonderful, wonderful color and accent that you can put wherever you need it. And look how exciting some of the varieties our tulips are in these next few pictures. These are all late blooming. This was taken from the top of one of those containers. I enjoyed this so much because these were on my deck, Debbie, where I could see them easily. I didn't have to go out into the garden. It was magnificent. And in the following picture, if you choose from the later ones, although there are double flowered in the earlier ones too, they're incredible. They look like a peony.
They do. They really do.
They're so beautiful. And the following picture is a parrot tulip. Again, grown in a container with just that single variety. And you've seen the next picture before, and you'll probably see it again because it is a joy. It was Easter. All the children, thank God, come to my home. And Gretchen was sitting among the tulips and among the containers. It's for us all to enjoy. In the next picture, the joy of accessorizing. I love the reflection of this tulip grown in a container and sitting on the deck, reflected in the gazing bowl. Now, Debbie, this is how I prefer to do things in containers. And I have had incredibly good luck with this. On this particular year, I used a grouping of plastic pots, and they were at least 10 inches across, at least.
Yeah.
I have used the simple clay pots with great success and rarely have had them break. I have even used ceramics, the well-fired ceramics. And it depends upon how many you're doing. On that particular year, I did quite a few. I put the landscape fabric down on the soil in an area. It could be, if it's a small grouping, could be under or next to a shrub in a protected spot, out of the way, so you don't have to look at it all winter. I put the landscape fabric down, filled my containers. I topped them off with that small river jack because that stone helps to keep the little varmints from digging in, whether it's squirrels or chipmunks or whatever. And I labeled them on that year. I don't always do that, okay?
That's very helpful, though.
And then I pulled that fabric over and secured it with the sod pins. We sell those sod pins. It's like a great big hairpin, okay? Sealed it off so the varmints couldn't get in. That protected it over winter. And you have to be careful to go out in late February, particularly if it warms up, and lift that top off, otherwise it'll get too warm. But I have had the greatest success by doing this in that way. And so I highly recommend it.
Yes, absolutely.
And you don't have to eat the whole cake. You can do 10 or 12. And doing different varieties, you can move them into place as they come into bloom.
Right.
It's very much fun.
It is. It's great. Okay, one more break, and we've got some even more bulbs to show you.
Just a few more.
A few more. And we'll be right back. It's pumpkin time, too. And I love the different pumpkins we have at the garden
They
center
are
now.
so exciting.
Some
They've just come
very
a
cool
long
ones.
way with these pumpkins, bringing back a lot of the heirloom things. But there's the blue-green, there's the white,
Right.
there's the, oh my goodness, it's fun. And you know, we've talked a lot about bulbs, a lot about tulips, a lot about daffodils, narcissus, alliums, but there's more to it than that. Fall is so fantastic, and we're going to touch a little bit on some of the other things that are giving us color right now, okay? And next week we'll touch a lot more. A lot of you don't know this plant, and it is in bloom in my garden right now, has been for the last 3 weeks, and will be until a heavy frost takes it out. It is a Nippon, N-I-P-P-O-N, Nippon daisy. Looked like a chrysanthemum, and it is kind of in that family, okay? Following picture is, and I took this last week, it's actually still my garden. I have, this is the front of the border in that roadside garden. I have that Nippon daisy in bloom. I've got the little tiny zinnias that are annuals mixed with the verbena that's an annual at the front of that border. And then I'm showing you in the next picture where I have bulbs planted, or where I may want to put additional bulbs, how I may want to beautify that garden right now, knowing that frost will take out the annuals that are in there. There are only a few, but everybody needs a few annuals
That's
to
right.
help carry over that color. And so I can plant crocus near the front. I can plant them among the pansies and the violas. And by the way, it's wonderful to mix pansies and violas because those violas are incredible performers. And still I like the larger bloom contrasted with that. Farther back in this border where you don't have to worry about the larger foliage, you can see there's a depth of at least 4 feet back into that border. I have set some packages of the late blooming, the Darwin tulips, or the late singles. And I did select a color grouping that I thought would be attractive with all of this, because in spring this area is going to look completely different. It's got the kale that goes through the winter nicely, will bloom in the spring. It's going to have tulips coming in here and there. It's going to be really,
It's gonna be great.
It's going to be very showy, you know. And speaking of showy, here again, I showed you Gretchen earlier, and she was enjoying the fruits of all our labor.
Right.
Okay. Now, I'm showing you earlier when Rose and her brother James and a neighbor's friend joined in to get all of their fall containers planted. So you're actually seeing Rose with her potting soil and putting in the kale, putting in those heucheras that we showed you how to do this in our video. Putting a few bulbs underneath so that they'll come through in the spring. And so she's having a wonderful time decorating. And after we decorated at her house, we went down to my son's home. Well, that was my son Matthew's home, with Rose. And now my son Mark with his girls, and Rose joined with them, that they are creating the piece for the front door They have put some grasses in a lovely container, and they are working on the pumpkins, some of which they carved, but some of which are just there for decorations.
Right.
And here again, you know that I'm really, really big on getting these kids involved, and they love to be involved.
That's wonderful.
And so this is one of the major reasons we garden. It's one of the major reasons that we have all of these beautiful things, so that this is our outdoor living space and sharing it with others. And speaking of sharing with others, I asked Andrea out at our Fair Oaks location to create for us today on the show one of the things she'd been cranking out for out there, because I thought it was so lovely. She took a wonderful bunch of the Indian corn. She wired a few artificials to it. She made a pretty bow. She put a wire on to hang it with, and presto, within minutes, she had produced this absolutely beautiful door piece. So if you haven't done it already,
I know, which I
time.
haven't. And I was looking back at some pictures, and last year you had put on our door here kind of a square thing with gourds in it. And so I
Yes.
created that at home because I loved
Oh.
it. I think this is this year's.
Well, and you know, this is the beauty. I actually do recycle things sometimes because I've got an area in my basement where I hang the seasonal things.
Yep.
But I like my decor to change.
That's right.
Just as I like my garden
That's
to
right.
change.
Well, we have totally run out of time. So thank you for being with us. Hope you come to the seminars this weekend at all 3 locations. Next week we'll be showing you how to create a fall destination.
That's
So
right.
that'll be fun.
So you won't have to go
You don't
driving.
have to go driving. That's right. See you next time.